my name is Ángel Mellado, el brujo de Madrid. They call me el brujo de Madrid because el brujo is mean brujería, you know. I can play the guitar like that, like this, any position. Sit down in the chair, yeah. I come into Australia with the reason as a mechanic. In the factory, we have lunches and talk with other workers, manager, you know, this, and they find out, because was other 2 or 3 Spanish working there and Italians, they find out I was singer, professional singer in Spain, and they asking me to bring my guitar one day up there, and they might be singing when we was eating the lunches 12 o'clock. Okay, and the manager of the section, I say, Ángel, I'm going to make something for you. He started talking with Channel 9, and there was a show called In Melbourne Tonight, the top compare ever in Australia, Graham Kennedy and Bert Newton. So I come in there and I play one solo. You know how much they pay me? 12 pounds. When I calculate in Spanish pesetas, it was in 3 minutes for one song. I play Soleares. In 3 minutes song, I make a month to support my mother for 1 month from Australia. Just one. I moved to Sydney to work in a cabaret España in Liverpool Street, first Spanish restaurant, Flamenco Tablao. At the same time, I was doing another restaurant very popular called El Patio in George Street, opposite the George Theatre. The Cabaret España, the show we did 10 o'clock, and after we did on the RSL clubs 11 o'clock later. This restaurant was special for me to come there to play for the people who start to learn the Spanish language. They recommend me to the Menzies Hotel for dinner music. My music was special for dinner, and the Menzies Hotel was a high class. All rich people come there. I got publicity, first class publicity from the Menzies. I met a dressmaker #1 in Australia. She said when he came to Menzies one night to see the Spanish guitarist, she wanted to do a show for models singing songs on the pasarela, no photos with that, on the pasarela singing songs with the guitar hanging like that, with beautiful models and the top dressmaker in Australia. When I come to Australia, I have to dedicate more in my flamenco private home, because I try to sing with guitarists in a flamenco schools, dancers, and those guitarists there, Australian, Italian, Greco, whatever, and they don't know how to accompany a soleá, a seguiría, or alegrías. They don't know how to play. But when I was to sing it, So, in Australia, I have to learn to accompany myself, tarantos, seguirillas, alegrías, peteneras, fandangos, sevillanas, all flamenco, chico, mediano, and hondo. The best Australian flamenco, accompany my songs, accompany for that, accompany and play the guitar solo, was Tony Morrison from Sydney, who got the shop, guitar shop in Oxford Street, close to the Spanish Club, and I was singing with him. Why? Because he understands Spanish, my songs, not flamenco, and Tony Morrison, Spain, struggling a little bit in Spain for 10 years. When I met him in his shop, I was saying, my God, it's God here, a guitarist God. I did perform with Aborigine with the didgeridoo. You know how? At Chiquirilla with a didgeridoo. And the didgeridoo, boom, 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 boom. And they love it. The sound is very primitive, like a flamenco. Aha. The indigenous, they come from Africa. The flamencos come from Africa. Okay, when the flamenco, they dance, it's very much like a flamenco. But the Spanish, they do the clap, the tapping. Okay? But before the flamenco, they were dancing barefoot. On the house, on the land, the singing on the land, working on the land, on the caves, on the caves, they work on the miners. I know the miners because my father was working on the miner. Me voy pa la mina solo, ay, con el talego en la mano. Me voy pa la mina solo, porque no sabe la gente, ay, ay, lo que yo sufro, lloro. Ay, ay, yo me voy pa la mina solo. Oh, oh.
Hola, hello. I'm Carmen Maravillas, and I performed in Australia for 50 years with my husband, who is a guitarist, Juan Maravillas, and we performed together as Dos Maravillas. With my teaching, it was Academia Maravillas Spanish Dance. One came first in 1956, and that was during the Olympic Games in Melbourne, where he performed at the Chevron Hotel. It was very difficult in Melbourne at that time for performers in general. There were quite a few very good European-style cabarets, and we performed in Troika, Top Hat, Moulin Rouge, and also the famous Cappuccino restaurant in St Kilda, where one had to dress somewhere else because there were no dressing rooms, put a cape over the top and rush through the kitchen with all the greasy gas stoves to get to the performing area. We decided to move to Sydney because there was much more work for performers and entertainers with the club circuit and also with touring, especially country touring. In the early days, Jose Greco, he came with his company, and Luisillo, and even the great Antonio, he performed at the Palais Theatre in Melbourne. We flew down specially to see that performance, and there were also performers who had learnt with my teacher, my very favourite and famous teacher in Spain, Mercedes Leon. Our school performance took the form of a trip to Spain, where we showed children dances from different regions, different customs, different costumes, and explained the meaning of the flamenco dances that we were doing in rural areas and country towns. You're performing in clubs where the poker machines usually went right up to the stage or performing area. So you had the noise of poker machines and a very strange preconceived idea of what flamenco was. And that was, oh, yeah, we know that flamingo. That's where they make lots of noise with their feet and use them clacky things. So that was virtually the scene touring Australia early on. Well, just the records from 1977, I think it was, to 2014 we did over 5,600 concerts and over 2,200 classes that we taught. So I think we did spread. In fact, one of the ambassadors in Canberra, when we first started, came to our school performance and he said, "I'm not the ambassador, you are," for Spain.
We came in '83 to West Australia. There was absolutely nothing here. There was a gypsy lady by the name of Tani and her husband, and they ran a Spanish restaurant, and that was the end of it. Dance students hadn't had a clue about what Spanish dance training was all about. And in the days when I started, when I was 12, there was 4 very clear divisions in Spanish dance. There was the flamenco section, there was a folkloric or regional section, there was a neoclassical section, what is known as Clásico Español now, and then there was the Escuela Bolera, which is looking at classical ballet with castanets. And we were all of us who trained seriously as ballet dancers had to do Spanish dance. It was part of our training. And that is not the case in Australia. When I was growing up, when I was first dancing, we were all expected to be equally proficient in all 4 styles. Today, there's a generic term for flamenco for everything Spanish, and actually it's carried through into the repertoire today, which is blurred. I mean, you see instances of jazz, instances of contemporary dance in flamenco. So it's evolved a great deal over the last 30 or 40 years. Yeah. I think it's a great thing, but I think it's important now that there are teachers in Spain who are actually saying that they teach flamenco and Spanish dance, because the flamencos have kind of overridden all of the other styles, right, in a way. And I think it's important to make that distinction. There's a very definite set of skills that you need for the other styles that you don't necessarily need for flamenco. Flamenco is different, something different on its own. What I wanted and did not succeed with was to import the model that is current in the Northwestern University of Illinois in Chicago, where you can do a BA in flamenco, and attached to that is a company. It's not run by the university. The company works, separately, but it's an avenue for graduates of that flamenco course, the best ones to go into. It's the model that I really wanted, and I was heading in that direction for WAPA, but it's more a contemporary dance school. That is where the accent is. And also it was a case of logistics and finances. They were worried about the use of studios, whether there would be enough students coming from interstate, all of those things. And it wasn't the time, and it didn't work out. But I think that needs to happen for flamenco to be considered part of the establishment arts.
I come in 1966, and I decided to stay in Australia because I started singing. The dancer was Tani de Granada. Tani was is still the niece of the Carmen Amaya, the husband who was the guitarist, Antonio Utrera, and we are the first people flamenco who stay in Australia and we can resident in Australia. Bueno, the people here then hear about what flamenco, and then thinking only in castanet, the beautiful thing of the clothes, of the dress of the girls, etc., etc. But not have much interesting to the singer, because the singer did not understand the meanings of the singer. But anyway, slowly, after we was in this particular restaurant in Perth, the accumulation of the interesting people, the owner of the restaurant booking for 3 months in advance. We, the pioneer in Australia, allow the people, the artists from overseas come to Australia, and the people in Australia have more appreciation of them, meaning we teach them.
I think that it's really changed for the better. Absolutely. When I first started, you know, there were really no classes, there was no internet, there was no information. I didn't understand about working with the guitar or a singer. I had to bring Veronica Gilmer over and go and, you know, study with her. She was wonderful. She explained everything to me, and that's how I started to teach and to perform with, you know, able to use the guitar and singer. And this was even before Titi came here, you know, trying to work our way through all that. I think what's always been at the base of my teaching is I've always wanted to teach tablao style, and I felt that for improvisation, that was the best way to teach. So if you get stuck in the middle of a dance, you don't have a heart attack or walk off, which I did once, I'm ashamed to say. But I wanted to, so I always wanted to teach people to work with singers and guitarists. I wanted to teach guitarists to work with singers and dancers to understand how the structure goes. So that's why I'm a big Yamada fan.
Hello, I'm Veronica Gilmer. I was born in Melbourne in Australia, and I always had this great love for dance and studied ballet for several years. And when I was a very young teenager, I see a Spanish dance company that had come to Australia, the Luisillo Dance Company, and they were performing in Melbourne. And in fact, it was the first flamenco dance that had come to Australia, which is quite amazing when I think about it. So I've been studying ballet for years, and this woman walked out on the stage in this white frock with this long tail, and she walked across the floor in her hands, and then all of a sudden she kicked this bata de cola, which I didn't know what it was then, up on the stage, and all this dust went up, and I thought, that's what I want to do. And I suppose that was kind of when it started. All of my work was usually what Juan Maya used to call the office. La oficina was usually across the road from the tablao. So that's where you went to the bar, and then you would wait for people to come out from the tablao between breaks, and then you'd talk to them, and they'd say, oh yes, so-and-so's leaving next week, and such, he's going to Germany, and she's going to Japan, and go and see the owner, and they'd get you in there. And it was just all word of mouth. And so that was the office, the bar across the road from whichever tablao you wanted to get into. And I was lucky enough to get an audition for what was regarded as the best tablao in Madrid, which was Torrebermejas, and that really became my house, on and off for about 8 years, where I was lucky enough to work with the best in the world, literally. And not only that, it was during what was known as La Época de Oro, like the golden era of flamenco. In the same house were people like Camarón de la Isla, I mean, the most amazing, really, really wonderful musicians, singers and dancers. I was just very lucky. One of the reasons why flamenco in Spain in that time was known as La Época de Oro, because it was a golden era when It was a very creative era. And then we had people coming up like Paco de Lucia, there was Juan Maya Marote, all these people with these amazing skills, but they were their own. They really worked in a very creative way. A lot of the well-known performers in those days, they danced to suit themselves, not to copy others. I think occasionally people come along like that and they kind of stir everybody up, and people then reach into themselves and find something different. I mean, we don't have to all look the same. We shouldn't try and look the same.
Flamenco expresses feelings, sentiments that are universal to the human race. And therefore, an entertainer who has, or dancer, artist, a flamenco artist, who has that duende, that feeling within, and can pass that to the audience, it will be understood. It's a language that speaks to the heart, it speaks to the soul. And therefore, any human being who has an empathy, I feel, can understand flamenco and can really appreciate and benefit from seeing a performance which can emanate this to the audience. And I feel it's essential for teachers. Teach the technique, yes, but that's only part of it. Once your students have the technique, or even before you start that, they need to know some of the history of flamenco. They need to know the geographical influences on the different palos, the different styles of flamenco. They need to understand that you can't dance soleares with a great smile on your face because it comes from loneliness. You can't dance cigarilla in a flippant way because it expresses anger and deep emotions of the flamenco hondo. The dances, the music, the cante that comes from El Levante. This is from lonely mining areas of Spain. And this has the llanto, the lament, and this must be expressed. So teachers, please make it part of your teaching that you do performance enhancement, which will show these qualities and imbue your students with the passion, with the duende for flamenco, because here it will speak to the souls of your viewers. Gracias.
I think flamenco dancers need to have access to the same training as classical and contemporary dancers do, and they don't at present. Present, they have to do it privately under their own steam, and there's no conservatorium or school or university that they can go to take a degree, and they should be able to take a degree either as a member of an audience, a knowledgeable writer of flamenco, or as a performer. And there's lots that can be included that way. And there's a lot of talent in this country, and it should be given the respect of a full-time salary and not having to always do project things and bits and pieces all over the place.
Many people say to me, Titi, to be flamenco need to be gypsy, no? Like you, no? I say, no, you're wrong. Flamenco is universal.
Actually.
And anyone with appreciation and love and have some quality of produce flamenco is welcome. It's a flamenco never close the door for anyone who want to demonstrate some talent.
I'd like flamenco just to get more and more popular. I think it's a fantastic art form, I think, for women, for men, for expression. And I would just like to see it gain more and more popularity.
If you really want to see flamenco, you really need to go to Spain to experience it. Because often it's not in the theatre. It's hardly in the studios. It's at parties, at fiestas, at weddings, at, you know, and it's usually in Andalusia somewhere, Jerez or Utrera or Cádiz, you know. I'd certainly encourage people to learn the language. Helps a lot if you can communicate with people properly. And it's really your own journey. You have to love it. Listen to the singing because it's just so important. Listen to the music. It's not just the dance, it's the whole art form.
More choreography in your bodies, feeling in your soul what the flamenco was born from the feeling of your heart. El duende. Not many people got duende. That's why you have to keep going with the flamenco. If you keep it the traditional, the duende it help you. Okay? And duende is a god. It's like a god. That's why you can do it. And for the last one, the flamenco guitarist, please learn how to accompany the singer, because the first thing in flamenco was a singer, after the guitar and after they got the dancers for accompany to make the fiesta ending. And the dancers took over, I don't mind. But now all together, guitarists, singers and dancers with the clapping is enough to satisfy the people to make a night, couple hours happy in a restaurant or in a place, flamenco place. See the what is. And thank you Australia to have me for so many years. I'm glad. Thank you very much. Yeah.